You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. My name is John Kursmo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Wednesday, we're live to help you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. What we're talking about today is more math. On today's installment of Top Real Estate Math You Should Know, we're breaking down special assessments from start to finish. A special assessment is a one-time tax, and this is probably something you're more likely to run into on your real estate exam in the real world, but either way, the math should hold true. So let's head over to the board here, and let's lay out an example, just like you're going to see on the Florida real estate exam as it relates to a special assessment. So let's start out with the information that'd be given to you. We'll put that in blue, and the information is going to be something along the lines of a lot frontage. Now, they may not give you just the frontage, they may give you the dimensions of the property, and what you want to remember is that the first number is the frontage number. And so we'll go with 100 feet for this example we're going to do here together. 100 feet of frontage. And we're going to do paving. That's your typical assessment for paving a street. And I'm going to lay this out visually in just a second here, but let's get our key numbers that we need. So we'll say that the paving cost $50 per foot. So $50 per foot for paving. We'll say this is the city doing it, and the city tax budget already pays for 30%. So with a lot more words, this would be how this would be delivered to you on, for example, the Florida real estate exam. There is a property that is 100 feet of frontage, and maybe again they also give you 150 feet deep. But we don't care how deep the property is. We just care about the frontage, the first number. If we're going to lay this out visually, nothing on your exam is going to be visual, but these visuals can be extremely beneficial. So we've got our street here. This is what's being paved. And specifically, this property with 100 feet of frontage. 100 feet of frontage of the lot touching the street. Let's zoom in on that so you can see it a little bit closer up. So 100 feet of frontage, $50 per foot, and the city is going to pay for 30%. Now, visualizing this can absolutely be helpful. We're going to come back to that visual in just a moment, but let's work on solving this out here because the math is not too complicated. Just like any math on your exam, it's basic four-function calculator stuff. You just have to remember the steps. A calculator just like this you could use on your real estate exam. So all we have to do is take 100 feet times the $50 per foot. So 50 times 100, $5,000. You could have also just added 2 zeros to 50 because of the 2 zeros in 100. But the calculator will always work regardless of what tricks you remember. So that's our cost of paving this section of road here, $5,000. Now that's not the answer to this question. The question on your real estate exam is ultimately, what is this person's share? So we don't want just the total paving cost. We have to factor out this first. This 30% that the city already has budgeted for. And so if we imagine that as a pie chart, and we take out, well, 30% is probably a little bit bigger than that, more like that there. So we've got 30% for the city. That leaves us with 70%. So we're going to take that 5,000, multiply it by 0.7 which is 70% as a decimal. You'd also put in 0.70. It'll also come out the same thing. $3,500. Now, on your exam, you're likely to see this as an answer. You're likely to see this as an answer choice. Neither one of them are the answer choice for the typical real estate exam question, because it's not a question of what is the total cost, because that's what the contractor paving the road is concerned with. They want to be paid $5,000. And the city has to pay for 30% of that, so that's about $1,500 in this example that we've got here, that the city's paying for out of the budget, which I'll let you in a little secret. That's your tax money that they get that budget from. But, you know, that 30% is already covered by normal property taxes, essentially, so now it's just your 70% contribution. But there's one final step, which makes this one not the correct answer either, and that's to divide by 2. Because that $3,500 cost is for both sides of the street, and we only want our half of the street, so we have to divide by 2. Now, in your question, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see any of the diagrams, the visuals. You're just going to see these key details in the word problem. The dimensions of the property, where you need to get the frontage or the first number. The paving costs, that a contractor has agreed to pave the street for $50 per foot. The city pays for 30% of that. What is the homeowner's share of the special assessment, or what would the special assessment for the homeowner be? So we take that $3,500 final step to divide it by 2, and that's going to give us $1,750. $1,750 as the portion for this half of the street. And that is a special assessment. So pretty simple, pretty easy. The common questions are, what about the other side of the street? What if there's different lot sizes? That's fine. You do a separate calculation for each individual parcel, because in theory, there should be owners pretty much everywhere across that. Somebody responsible for that frontage to the street. So all you do is hone in and focus just on your property there. Now, this is a really quick one. So let's do this one more time. Let's do another example. We'll choose some different numbers. Now, key things, again, you're pulling out of the question is going to be your frontage. So let's pick a bigger property. Let's say it's got 500 feet of frontage. And let's say the road is $150 a foot because they're doing it in some special brick. And who knows, that I'll probably get comments saying that, well, if you're doing it by brick, it's going to be at least $197 per foot. Okay, cool. Let me know if you know the actual cost of this. We're just doing a hypothetical exam answer here, but I would love to find out what a paving cost normally is per street, what the going rate is for your area. So there's our cost. And it's either the city or the county. We'll just call it the city here. The city pays, let's say that they're being cheap. We can only cover 25%. So we've got a frontage. And again, the visuals, the diagrams, I really like them. I think they help out. I do recommend them. But you're by no means required to draw this out. But you do have scratch paper on your exam. You're allowed scratch paper as well as a basic 4-function calculator. So you have the tools you need to succeed. So we got our two-sided street. That's like why I always like to draw in the little dashes on the street there. Even if this is, this is a fancy brick road, it probably doesn't have these dashes on it. But I want the dashes because I want to remember we just want our half of the street. And we've got 500 feet of frontage here. It doesn't matter how far back our property goes. It doesn't matter how deep it goes back. What matters is the frontage, the first number, if they're giving you a set of dimensions such as 500 by 750. That would be the depth. And the first number should be your frontage number. If they're giving it to you in the form of dimensions, they might just, again, say your frontage is 500 feet. That's the mystery of the exam. The math is extremely predictable. It's just how exactly do they word it? What exact numbers are they going to use in this scenario? But other than that, these math questions for your exam are extremely predictable. So definitely check out some of those other segments we have on the top real estate math you need to know, from prorations to to stamp taxes, to all kinds of different math. And if you really want a more specific, tailored approach to studying for your exam, you need our Exam Cram workbook that's available at passfirsttry.com. It has a whole set of videos that follow along so you can fill in that workbook and make sure you're confident and prepared for your real estate exam. There's also a question simulator, audio review, and a whole secrets of the exam strategy guide that helps you really dial in on how to pass this exam with the least amount of resistance possible, because it can be tricky. But one of the things for the math questions, I'll give you this tip right now: the more times you practice them, the more repetition you get, the easier it is to solve. So back to the math questions and the pitch, back to the question here. So we've got 500 feet. Each of these 1 foot strips here of these 500, each are 150. So we take 500 times $150. So 500 times 150. And now we've got $75,000. But again, good news is the city is paying for 25% of that. So if the city is paying for 25%, that leaves us 75%, because 100% minus 25% leaves you with 75%. So out of that 75,000, the owners are responsible for 75% of that. We multiply by 0.75, that gives us 56,250. And you're like, wow, what a bill. But remember, we just want our half of the street, so we still need to divide by 2. And again, big tip for your exam. This will probably be an answer choice, this will probably be an answer choice, but the right answer, the final answer for this is actually 28,125. Because you always want to divide by 2 at the end, because you're only dealing with your half of the street, not both sides of the street. Unless you also own the properties on the other side of the street, then you'll get a bill for that side of the street as well. But as long as you're just on your one property right here, it's just for your frontage. Now, if this were a corner lot, you'd have a lot of extra frontage. That would be where we would need this extra dollar amount here. Now, is this going to likely be on your exam? Probably not. But if you could do this, you really got this down. And this is where the visual would definitely help out. So let's say that we've got a property that is a corner lot. And let's say that one side is 150 feet and the other side is 200 feet. So if it's a corner lot, that means in our drawing here, here's our lot. Try again. There's our short side, 150, our long side, 200. But if it's a corner lot, that means that we've got road there and there. So we're paying for this and we're paying for this, because it's based on frontage. Don't get too crazy into the geometrics. It's kind of more like that, more or less. But all we need is the frontage right here, because it's based on the frontage. 150 feet of frontage there, 200 feet of frontage there. And let's say that the contractor, the cost is, we'll just go with $100 a foot. And we'll say that the city pays 20%. So, first step, which is going to be an additional step, is we've got to find the total frontage. Because specifically this is a corner lot, we need to combine these two together. So we're going to actually have 350 feet of frontage. Now that is only because it is a corner lot. And if you're studying this for your real estate exam, I highly doubt you're going to have an example like this, a question on your exam that involves a corner lot. You could, sure, why not? And this is how you do it. But if you're just trying to pass your exam, focus on those first two examples that we did first before you even touch this one. The repetition is key, but not repeating all these different math questions, because if you don't have the steps down yet, this is you're saying, oh, now I have to add these together. If that's what you're saying right now at this point in the video, now I have to add these together, you need to go back and practice this over and over and over again and again and again. Get more repetition in on this to where you could do this second nature, to where you could do this in your sleep. When you've got that level of repetition down, and you absolutely can, because there's just a few quick little steps in here, so this is going to be one of the easiest math questions to really get that repetition down, and that's going to help you with that extra step there of remembering to divide by 2, because that's something a lot of people forget about this when they try to approach this with just their common sense. But once you do have it down to that point and you could wrap your brain around, okay, now I'm going to make something even more difficult that could be on my exam, but it probably won't. And it's just the concept of a corner lot here. And that's, again, the visual drawing this out, immensely beneficial. So 350 feet times 100, that's going to give us what, 35,000, is that? Yeah, 35,000. Always good to double check it on your calculator, on your exam, because you are allowed to use one. Even if you can do the mental math, it's always good to double check. We've got 20% paid by the city. That leaves us with 80%. So we're going to multiply that by 0.80. 35,000 times 0.80. That leaves us now to 28,000. But remember, that's for both sides of the street. So all the owners over here are going to get their own separate bills for their side of the street. So we just want our half. We're going to divide by 2 to get that. So 28,000 divided by 2 is going to give us a $14,000 special assessment. And that's it. It's as simple as that. The special assessment is one of the easier questions to really get down pat. It's a highly likely one to show up on your exam. And so if that does show up on your exam, that's an easy point to get. A lot of people like to write the math questions off as, oh, these 10 questions, I could just miss all those and get 90% still. Yeah, but that now banks on you getting 100% on the other 90 questions, when really the non-math questions are the most unpredictable because there's a lot of different ways they could twist the words around. And regardless of how they twist the words around in these questions here, they're still going to have to use numbers. They're still going to have to give you the frontage in some way, shape, or form, the cost per foot of construction, of paving cost, how much the city or county is paying, which you have to remember because they might actually say that the owners are responsible for 80%. That would change nothing on the board we have right here if they said the owners are responsible for 80%. But if you're only looking at the numbers and not paying attention to the words, that's how they get you, just by twisting those words around there. And it gets a lot worse when they don't have numbers to be the tent poles of the question. So all your non-math questions, that's where understanding the concept is definitely more important. And again, all those exam prep tools we have available at passfirsttry.com, extremely beneficial for that. This is stuff that's been used by thousands of students before you from all over Florida. Passfirsttry.com. And if you do have any questions about anything that we cover today, about passing your exam, about renewal requirements, about a real estate career in general, call or text this phone number 24/7, 813-333-2676. That's 813-333-2676. And for more exam prep, go to passfirsttry.com. It's passfirsttry.com. Or call us up at 813-333-2676. It's about all the time that we've got for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. We will be back on Friday for State of Real Estate, so make sure you tune in for that. Until then, have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on Friday.